السلام عليكم. سعيدين اليوم ان انتم موجودين معانا. Sorry, I will skip to English. Just I want to say السلام عليكم. Good afternoon, everybody. Today we are part of a great event gathering all the women in the Middle East and the North of Africa in the digital transformation. We are going to discuss very interesting topic. It's about the digital transformation in government and towards smarter nation. Today we have with us on the floor a great panelist and expert in the field of digital transformation. I would like to start and introduce the speakers with us. We have with us Dr. Nibal Idlebi, the Chief Innovation Officer from the ESCWA Office of the United Nations. We have also with us Samia Melhem, Global Lead on Digital Capabilities, Digital Development Global Practice from the World Bank. We have with us Dr. Hoda Alkhzaimi, the Director of the Cybersecurity Center in New York University in Abu Dhabi, and also the President of the Digital Association for Emirati Women. We have with us also Ms. Nani Butti, the Director, of the information system in the Ministry of Youth and Sport in Bahrain. We have with us Ms. Mariam and Muhairi, Head of the Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution from United Arab Emirates, Dubai Future Foundation. And I am here, Yasmin Enazi. I will be the moderator for this session with you. Welcome, all of you, and hope that we'll enjoy the session with us and the discussion about the topic. When it's come to the government and the digital transformation in government, currently we are seeing that the society are moving towards psycho-technical system in which physical and virtual dimension of life are more and more intertwined, and where people interaction and service and dealing happening with machine, the scale at which this is happening and the difference in culture, language, and interest make this the problem of establishing effective communication, coordinating action, and this is create a complex and challenging for nation and government. Smart society, or a smart community, is a society that take all these issues into a consideration, and the smart nation is the basic element, or let us say concrete stone of smart society. To create a smart society, we should ensure the transformation of citizen in a smart citizen who's likely to be reluctant to adopt without motivation, or in many cases, the change of the mindset. As per the International Data Center, and then summarized for the government character in smart government, they summarize it, this character in a citizen participation in government business, information transparency in government, collaboration across all the government entities to deliver a better service for a citizen. The holistic smart government framework is introduced by the United Nations. It's defined that as a multidimensional framework encompassing policy, strategy, business practice, funding, technology, service, and R&D support by clear communication efforts and the human capital management, and finally, impact analysis. A disruptive innovation is not limited to technology. It extends to include new procedures, new regulations, tools that might consider disruptive to the traditional way or rules and habits that might require radical reform. The impact of disruptive innovation and technology vary from community to another community. For example, economics, social habits, mindsets play important role in adoption process and can make or break the introduction of the change and the new application. The government leader recognized that all contact center, let us say, of service and technology cannot address the new expectation, especially after the pandemic and the expectation to have more and more digital transformation in the service. So this is accelerate the government adoption of digital channels, innovation, cloud, and AI technologies. With that, we can recognize there is a lot of work has to be done by the nation and by the government, and we need to have a more collaboration between the all this ecosystem. Dr. Nibal, I would like to start with you after the introduction I have been given about the strategic technology for the smart government. What is the top strategic technology for smart government currently?
Yeah, thank you very much, Ms. Yasmin, for this introduction, and thank you for including me in this interesting panel. I would say that first of all, that there are many technology today, there are many emerging technology available, and what is interesting in this today in our daily life and in this era is that we can combine the different technology together and merge them to have innovative solution that address a specific problem. Then it is very important to understand that the various technology and the combination and the convergence between them is very tight, and this is really a very added value of this era. The most important ones, let me say that first of all is to have very high good connectivity, and this is, I mean, connectivity, infrastructure connectivity is really one of the most important technology that is needed. Of course, internet together with the high quality, which means broadband, mobile services, and so on. In addition to, of course, today we are emerging towards 5G, which enables better services, better quality of services, and better connectivity between variation of devices. This is the first technology that I would say, which is the base, in fact, of anything related to digital technology today. The second technology that I would advise today is maybe artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is offering a lot of opportunity for government services, and of course for private sector. But if we focus on government services, I mean, AI, it enables better interaction between between citizen and government using some automation procedure or chatbots and so on. Then there are a lot of virtual software, let us say, that enables this interaction easily between government and citizen. Also, there is, I mean, using the AI, it helps a lot for the customization of government services and the personalization of government services, then using the AI engine and so on. Additionally, I mean, AI can help a lot in the enhancing efficiency and enhancing the capability of services by analyzing the data that is coming from different sources. This is the second. The third technology, maybe I would say for smart cities and smart government, is IoT. I mean, Internet of Things is playing very important role today, as you know, for connecting a lot of devices. Today, we are estimating that the number of connected devices is around 10 billion devices. But this number might increase dramatically, and we are expecting to have 22 billion devices connected together in 2025. Then the connectivity between using IoT connectivity, this IoT, of course, it enables the connection between devices, between computer, mobile, and so on, but also sensors and camera and maybe some other instrument related to our daily life, like refrigerator, washing machine, and so on. But most importantly, in some sectors like electricity or transport sector, it is really very useful, I mean, to have the sensors and to have the collection of data and to have network with sensors in the electricity field, in the transport field, or in water, and so on. Then I would say IoT the third. The fourth technology, and here I will go towards data, and we know that the power of data, big data, is very important today. We know that there are many let us say many sources of information today from IoT, which generates a lot of data and information, and also from social media, as well as from the e-participation from open data that I will also, which is also very important, which generate and facilitate the the interaction between government and citizen. Big data is very important, and the analysis of data is important for improving the performance of government services internally or externally. I mean, internally within the government, or interaction with participant, with the citizen in a way or another. And also it helps for efficiency, let us say, is the most important. I cannot conclude without speaking about cloud computing. Cloud computing, although there are others, but I would say I will give advantage towards cloud computing because it is really very important today for government services, for government work, to have this, to rely on cloud computing, as it facilitates, as it enables facilitate cost, I mean reduce costs, in fact, and enhance the performance and make the work easier in easier way. I will stop here for the time being.
Thank you very much, and we will come for all this point, inshallah, during the discussion with the other speaker in the panel. I would like to take the discussion to discuss about the creating the novel and out-of-the-box solution to address unthought or unaddressed domain in government, handling service in a smart and more manner way. Ms. Nani, welcome. And I want to speak with you about the role and the function of disruptive technology. How we can government handle service in more smart and innovative manner and way.
Thank you, Yasmin. Thanks for your introduction, and thanks for Dr. Nibal as well for the great inputs and great information that we got from here. And I'm sure that we will get good and very interesting information from the rest of the panel as well. Let me talk about disruptive technology. If we are talking about disruptive technology here, we are mainly highlighting the point of innovation. Nowadays, after the pandemic and after what we got within a couple of 2 years, we have seen a rapid of changes in the technology. It was not as slow as before, in a slow manner that we are, it was taking ages in order to be done. Now we are talking about an immediate increment in any application or any services, and a huge jump between the technology from very traditional paperwork and paper environment to a huge jump in the innovation, which was way ahead from our thought that it will be done within 2 years. This is maybe one of the advantage of the pandemic that we were on. But actually, if we will move and talk deeply about the disruptive innovation, it is creating a new market and a new innovation way of doing the traditional things. As we said initially, it is not about doing new things. It is about doing new things in an innovative way. Disruptive technology, it is huge. It is managing or handling a lot of technologies or a lot of, let's say, sub-technologies like artificial intelligence. We have in the advanced and oil gas, there are many ways of expanding how we can generate information by using IoT in the field, by using many of the technologies that was way ahead of how we will think even about including it in our environment. Even about virtual and augmented reality, I think augmented reality was not in the picture before 5 years. Nowadays, we can see augmented reality in many of the technologies and many of the locations in IT field. If we will talk about the health sector, for example, which was the main sectors all over the world, we can talk about the next generation of genomics. I think in the health environment, the technology will jump maybe 10 years, technology will be done in 2 or 3 years. It's a huge. We can even think about the 3D printing and many things that was again not available within our field. We can see now the 3D printing takes a big jump and a big, let's say, a presence in the market. Many things has been changed from traditional printing, even for example, in the architecture designing, or even in the outcome of designing or an engineering field. We can see that many profile has been done using the 3D engineering. We can see building that has been completely built using the 3D printing. So this is part of a small part of what disruptive technology can give us. As we said, it is it will have many sub-technology that can be gathered in a lot of the field in IT. Also, I would like to add that even in the upcoming, let's say, couple of years, we will have like many things of, let's say, in the e-services, for example. Nowadays, we can see the e-services and the mobile technology, it is going through one click and one output. Previously, we were thinking about the whole process. Chatbot takes a huge, as an artificial intelligence, takes a huge jump, or it can be as a replacement of mobile application and e-services through mobile. And for example, in many fields, we were doing kind of, let's say, whole transaction and booking and everything using the chatbot as a service. This is just briefly about what we can have through the disruptive technology.
I just want to ask you, since you are, mashallah, handling lots of things in the Ministry of Sport and Youth, can we have any case? I know that the index of the UN has good ranking for digital transformation for Bahrain. If we can have a case or let us say success story, you can share it with us, like only just like I'm mentioning.
Okay, and you mean in Bahrain, right? Overall, not only
yes,
in the
Bahrain.
Yes, we have been, for example, one of the interesting things that has been done recently, which is Be Aware app. It's done by our role model in ICT in Bahrain, IGA. To be honest, they have used and they have combined many of the great technologies in Bahrain, like business intelligence. Initially, they were using kind of pants just to monitor how anyone who's getting quarantined due to COVID. So they were wearing the pants, so it was linked to kind of IoT meters or let's say readers in order to get their location. Are they still in the quarantine area or not? So this is one of the big achievements for Bahrain, to be honest. And it's combined many disruptive technologies.
Great to hear that, and congratulations for this success story. When we talk a lot about the AI, from the first with Dr. Nibal, then with Nani. I would like to come to Ms. Mariam. Currently, AI is the latest technology and innovation transforming the way of government service for citizens. But as with, this is a new tool and adoption is happening in waves. We cannot say that we have done and we finish. There is a lot of legalization work. There is a lot of concerns about diversity, about data, about inclusivity, and many agencies in government are trying to learn from each other. But Mariam, what is take to achieve success in this new era of innovation? What are the most important consideration when we applying or adopting the AI in our implementation?
Thank you, Yasmin, and it's a pleasure to be here with everyone else on the panel. I'm already learning a lot, so thank you for inviting me. I think to answer this, maybe the first part is, with any new technology, the first thing we need to think about is, do we really need this technology for a specific use case? So what I mean is understanding what the use case is in place before we even adopt a technology. I think we've seen, particularly within government, that sometimes we push forward with a particular case, but then we don't necessarily, or we haven't necessarily vetted whether this technology is the right one for this use case. So I would always start with understanding what the challenge is, what the use case is, and then moving towards trying to actually implement a technology. I think also within AI specifically, one thing we really need to think about is to actually understand what AI is, because what we've seen here is there are a number of companies that claim that they do artificial intelligence, but once you look a little further, you find that actually what they offer is, just some form of data analysis, or maybe they're more tied to something IoT or blockchain related, and so you have government entities using companies that are not necessarily supplying what they say they supply. So one of the things that we think about around that is really from a procurement and a regulatory standpoint. How do we ensure that the government entities or the other clients that we service are using the companies that are vetted? So there is something provided by the AI office, which is a kind of a seal of approval that says that yes, this is AI, and the government has sealed and certified this. So that would be the second thing I would think about. Another thing is infrastructure, and that's already been mentioned, but we have to have the right infrastructure from a connectivity perspective, but also the right infrastructure from a capabilities perspective. So do we have the right people in place to deploy this and implement this sort of technology? Are we going to replace jobs? I don't think so. Are we going to upskill? I would like to say yes. So the focus on upskilling and ensuring that everyone from the junior who's probably going to be implementing the project to the senior manager has an understanding of what AI is and why it's being implemented. And finally, two last things I would say are probably around the responsibility and the ethical kind of considerations of AI. So we also mentioned data already, but when we're thinking about training any form of AI or any sort of model, we're thinking about how are we collecting the data. So if we're looking, if this is something that's related to citizen services or government services, we need to ensure that privacy restrictions are in place. We have to ensure that data is collected anonymously, for example. So data is one. And the other thing is around auditing. So this is something we're looking at now, being able to audit the actual code that's in place or the algorithm that's in place, so that any sort of AI that you implement is then sustainable, and we're constantly ensuring that the data collected, the data generated, and the algorithm that is learning is safe for the government entity. So these are some of the things that we've been doing here in the UAE, but some of the things I think we've also learned from other governments in the work that we've been doing.
Thank you, Mariam, for your input. And we will come also through the discussion about the importance of data and data culture. And it's not only from one side, I think, it's from the government and also the citizen, as we are also talking here about the smart nation. I would like to take the discussion for Dr. Hoda to talk about how AI can meet the 17th Sustainable Development Goals, and if you can also elaborate more about the smart action as examples for that.
Thank you, Yasmin, for bringing I would say, the audience attention and the forum attention to this very important topic. So when we normally build technology, as my fellow panelists have supplied, Nani, Mariam, and as well Dr. Nabila, Nibal, it's very important to understand that we don't just build technology in quantitative manner, but in qualitative manner, trying to understand the impact of this. And when it comes to the 17th, it has been proven through recent study that has been published by the OECD that AI has been both an enabler and inhibitor of building or achieving the 17th development goal. And when they run the statistical data, they realize that some AI, or as Mariam just said, not everything is AI platform built, but AI enabled technology as well as blockchains and others. And it's a very important distinction. This AI-enabled technology could also serve as inhibitors. So when they ran the statistics, they discovered that 134 out of the 196 targets have been achieved for the SDG goals. And this is, mind you, is around 79% of the indicators of these global targets, indicators, and goals. And the 59 were not also achieved. And these are, for example, can constitute to, I think, around 35% of these goals. And the goals that have been achieved, there has been a mixed group where in some areas it has been like AI-enabled technology has impacted, for example, no poverty, which is SDG 1, SDG 4 as well, quality and education, SDG 6 on clean water and sanitation, and SDG 7 on affordable clean energy, and SDG 11 on sustainable cities, for example, to the positive side. However, it also impacted other sets of group, which was as well on the poverty aspects, on deforestations, on the green technologies, on the negative side as well. So now when you try to analyze, and you asked me, Yasmin, what is the smart action? The smart action here is, I echo what my colleagues said here on the platform. It's very important to build a mindful, holistic solution, sustainable solution, a long-term solution, rather than a short-term solution. And when we do that, it's very important for us to analyze the status quo and to know that first, there is a concentration of resources. When we build AI, we tend to build AI in countries or nations that have an accumulation of wealth, certain accumulation of technological resources and wealth, which might deprive other nations that don't have access to these technological resources and wealth. We know that already that over half of the human population are off the grid when it comes to internet connectivity. And so if they don't have internet connectivity, they might also lack accessibility to AI-enabled or AI-based platform. So concentration of resources and equal concentration of resources has to be reanalyzed, number one. So we are, when we talk about, for example, AI-enabled, green mobility, when it comes to, for example, self-driving cars, we can say for sure in certain areas around the world, these mobility choices might exist or could exist. And the other aspect as well, we need to be able to generate a holistic, accessible technology. Most of the ICT platform today, they consume 1% of electrical power. In 2030, there is an estimation that they will consume over 20% to 30% of electrical power. And this is, of course, goes to all of these analytical big platforms that relies on heavy computational resources that might not exist everywhere in the world. And at the same time, it relies on the aspect beside the computational aspect. We know, for example, we're talking about Bitcoins, for example, and their mining structure. We talk about, for instances, the high needed level of energy and footprint for climate mindful renewable energy choices. So what do we have to do today? We have to make sure when we build algorithms or when we build technology, we're aware of how can we build a technology with a minimal footprint. So it can fit into low energy devices, energy harvesting devices from natural resources around us that could be used everywhere else in the world. And this goes for AI-enabled as well technology. And the third option, which is the third critical smart action, could be also pushing for a holistic technology build, which makes sure that there is a human element integrated in the DNA of building AI-based technology, in order to make sure that the decision-making process is not only is not only biased to a single designer approach. And this is what we're talking about when we're talking ethical AI, when we're talking about non-biased technology build, and when we are also talking about fostering circular economy based options when we build these technologies. And the final takeaway here is also we have to make sure that we build a holistic financing and collaboration platform. Investment models flows today in Silicon Valleys around the world that are centered in specific heavily GDP strong countries. And the solution to building a holistic AI sometimes could not exist in this ecosystem and would not exist in this ecosystem. So how can we make sure that we build a financing model, an investment model in the ICT or an AI technology that is not only based, for example, in Silicon Valley X or Y, but also we can build many micro Silicon Valleys around the world where people could have ownership over building their own technologies and contribute to smart technological goal to fighting poverty and providing for example, global healthcare from a different perspective than what we have seen today. And I will leave it at that because I think the conversation on this area and this aspect is very lengthy. So we can, tackle other options as well and other points of view within the session. Thank you so much, Yasmin. We can't hear you, Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoda, for your input. And what you highlight, it's very important. And currently also the United Nations is working for all this, let us say, point that you arise, and many discussion is going around the world with the government. But what we need, as you say, that we have the human element, and also I think it should be have, let us say, the feedback from the public. When we talk about that, it's let us say, what as the UN they call it, e-participation or public participation, if we want to take it for the advanced level. I would like to take the discussion currently to Ms. Samia Melhem. She's joining us from US. I think currently it's 5 a.m. there. I would like to speak about the recommendation, Ms. Samia. What are the recommendations on how to proceed with the selection and evaluation of scenarios for smart and innovation in government?
Great. Thank you very much, Yasmin, and good morning to everyone. I'm Samia Melhem. I work at the World Bank, and I specialize in digital government. It's a pleasure and an honor to be with all of you. So this is an excellent question, Yasmin. And the good news is we are not starting from scratch and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. I would say let's start with some principles that have been updated in the last 2 years by the event of COVID. Whatever we do, we want it to be inclusive. And that, of course, matters to the digital divide, both for gender, but also digital divide for the vulnerable, the poor, the isolated, and the elderly, which is a very important population segment that we have neglected in the past. Second, we want everything to be resilient, so quality, sustainable. We're not making investments that will be destroyed at the first flood or at the first natural disaster. And then we want to go green, so really minimize the impact on climate. In fact, make sure that we calculate what we call climate co-benefit that technology introduces by saving on transport, gas emissions, paper, etc., etc. So we follow the framework of the digital economy, which is the framework that the World Bank, the UN, and all our partners have been really adopting in the last few years. And it's based on a few pillars that we already mentioned. For example, digital infrastructure that Nibal explained, digital government, digital skills, the human capital element, and of course, digital entrepreneurs to ensure that at the local level, especially in our region, frankly, where we really need to boost a bit our innovation capabilities and encourage new companies, new application developers to shine. How do we ensure that these new players are becoming global players? Just to give a few numbers that are really interesting for the MENA region. In 2016, the digital economy was worth 11.5 trillion. So it was around 15% of global GDP. It's growing 2.5 times faster than global GDP. and it's predicted in 2025 to be more than 30 trillion. So this is huge numbers. Of all that, AI could contribute up to 15.7 trillion to the global economy by 2030. This is a tremendous opportunity. These numbers are taken from a PwC report, by the way, but many other such reports, for example, Cisco predicts that, again, to Nibal's point on IoT, that the IoT connections are forecast to grow 17% a year, and by 2025 exceed 22 billion. Imagine the opportunities that can derive for that, opportunities for good, to monitor our natural resources with IoT, and to skill our local youth to be able to manage this and not depend on the outside world in terms of expertise and capabilities. So more on the sequencing. We know what needs to be done. Sometimes we get the sequencing wrong. Definitely connectivity is needed, but also the legal and regulatory framework. For example, in many of our countries in MENA, we're talking about digital ID, but we don't even have laws on digital IDs, not even laws on digital signatures or recognition of biometrics. So really do the sequencing right. Trying to make sure that we are really adapting our data policies to, at the same time, maximize the sharing of data, but also minimize the harm and protect the privacy of people. So again, data is a very important aspect, and we are new, frankly, in how to leverage data and maximize it, both on the digital government side, but also the digital economy. We have to invest in tools to monitor and evaluate the use of websites, the use of services, understand why services that we are spending millions and billions of dollars on are not used. So a lot of the psychology, the participation, and the tools to be able to solicit feedback in a very easy way, in a local language, and in a culturally acceptable way. The other point I wanted to make, which was made also by my previous colleagues, is do smart purchasing of IT, bulk purchasing, negotiate licenses, minimize the huge costs that is being paid often by government, and make sure that, of course, everything is safeguarded, because cyber criminals, where do they attack first? They always go for new government websites. So really make sure that the purchasing is done in a smart way, a whole of government way, in bulk, but also the software, the licenses, and everything that is purchased and developed meets the highest standards for cybersecurity and people protection. Last but not least, I want to say that we are seeing a lot of such things happen in the MENA region, and congratulations on all of you and your countries and your governments for really stepping up. COVID has helped accelerate that transformation, but I'm seeing a lot, especially in the Gulf countries. For example, right now I'm advising the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and other countries in the Gulf, and really what they're doing is excellent. And I'm referring my other clients to the sequencing, to the principles, and to the project management that I'm seeing emerging from the MENA region. I'm going to stop here, Yasmin, and hand it over back to you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samia, for your inputs and for your all statistics that you share and the study. I would like to take the discussion now and focus more about the data. All of us, when we discuss and when we talk about government and digital transformation, government or any smart technology, we talk about data. And it is an essential, let us say, or the currency for a smart government and a smart nation. When it's come for data, every time we hear that the new statement for every project and every, let us say, change in digital transformation, that data is the new oil. And what's beyond that, though, it's that the data is currency, as I say, for smart society. And we have an issue actually, especially if we talk about our MENA region, about the data and how to use the big data and the open data for public. Before it was closed by default. Currently, many governments and many entities, if I can take the case of the UAE, they are trying to make it open by default for the public when we have a smart government, but let us say without investing in application and investing in a project, just open it and make it an like enabler for the business and let us say accelerating the digital transformation. Dr. Nibal, Dr. Hoda, Ms. Nani, I want to take this topic specifically with you and talk about how governments around the world are working to make the nation has this friendly culture, especially in our MENA region. And I would like to start this with you, Dr. Nibal. And I know that you have a lot on your plates, especially as per the studies of the UN for our MENA region.
Yes, in fact, let me focus. This is really very important issue. I mean, data is really the oil of the future. This is really, I think, I believe on it. And let me focus a little bit maybe more on open data, which is really very important today. We know that through government services, the e-government services, many countries have, I mean, government have collected a lot of information. They have a huge really information gathered from either e-government services or from their internal business. And I mean, the open data principle is really saying that opening data that government has, I mean, really, especially government data, it has a lot of opportunity for the government as well as for citizen. This is, let me say that first of all, I mean, based on some survey that has taken place in other country, not necessarily in MENA region, but in other developed country, it seemed that open data is one of the most important element of it is to enhance transparency and accountability within government. Opening up data, I mean, and putting everything online, I mean, it encourages really, it is build the trust in the government and enhance transparency and of the government. Then this is maybe the most important topic that where open data can support and enhance in the government interaction with citizen. Additionally, in addition to that, open data can enhance the participation of citizens. People, when they are aware about what is taking place in the government, they can participate in better way, and they are more informed about everything, about many things, and they can contribute in better way. In the Arab region, I would say that then this is one, and also for the reuse of data. Reuse of data has a lot of economic and social impact, and opening up data can facilitate the reuse of data by entrepreneur or by private sector to make the use of these data, which are open, to make new services and deliver new services or a new product in a way or another. Thus, it will support the creation of a new employment and economic growth, and it will have important impact on economic growth. For example, in European Union, they have estimated in 2019 that the number of employment generated by open data is about 1 million new job opportunity, and it has a lot of a market. The size market in 2019 it was estimated to 183 billion euro, in fact. Then it has a lot of potential. In the Arab region, let me say that many governments are moving towards open data. They have 10 Arab countries have their open data portal, including all the Gulf region, in all the Gulf countries, in fact, and they have good numbers, good set of data online that are available today, and they are making use of it, especially for making people aware about the information. However, there is maybe more to do in order to encourage the reuse of data. I know that UAE, for example, they organized hackathon for open data for the reuse of data, and it was very interesting example, and I think this example could be followed by other countries. Tunisia repeated this exercise in hackathon also, I mean, last year, 2 years ago. And then this is, I mean, we need to enhance, and from one side, we still need to encourage government to put more data set related to various sectors from one angle, more than I'm not saying that we are doing well, but we need to do more, and encouraging the reuse of data. Open data portal are very useful instrument, as well as hackathon for encouraging private sector to intervene. I stop here.
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Nibal. I would like to take the same question for Dr. Hoda. How government can help her nation and to be more friendly culture with the data culture, how to use it, the aspects. What's your perspective, Doctor?
Thank you so much, Yasmin, for bringing this into attention. I think and thank you, Samia, for bringing our attention to the fact that digital economy is a rising unicorn, contributing to the global GDP, and we'll see more of that. I mean, the recent study for the World Economic Forum say that when they ran a survey over 800 technology executives, they realized that there is a sudden and imminent realization by 2025, technology is going to be the tipping point of economies. And that being said, then data is in the forefront of it. We generate 2.5 quintillion bytes of data on a daily basis. And if we can empower our users on a grassroots level, and this is what governments are, I think the great governmental service would be when they would enable that their citizen can utilize their data at a grassroots level to provide new venues of employability, new venues of creating income that did not exist in the past. And this is what we're seeing in initiatives today, and more than just a hackathon, but in technological initiatives that are meant to build a new job market that did not exist in the past, and providing this ability to work maybe from a remote village in Egypt and still earn a competitive salary to someone who's sitting in a development R&D house and one of the best technology companies in the world. And this is what we have seen recently, technology companies partnering with the government economic department in Africa to create these venues. And I mean, one of the successful projects happened actually in Egypt, and was supported by great technology providers as well across board. And we are going to see, and that's what we have to anticipate, to just work beyond monetizing data, beyond just, building data factories, beyond opening proper accessibility to these data, because that's what we're pushing for today. We provide data that's safe and secure to be manipulated, because also we have a borderline balance between security and safety and trust, and between availability and accessibility to data, and between making sure that users are in control of their own security and privacy, and realizing that if they put their data out there, then they have a huge risk of being manipulated. And so how can they protect these data and make sure that they have recognition of the risks that exist out there? So government plays a huge role in doing this. And I mean, in UAE, we see day and night the government trace that exist here across all governmental bodies, not only a specific one, into initiating mindful and cautious data initiatives that bring value and bring holistic outcome and services that are beneficial to the citizens across board. We've seen thank you for referencing the open data hubs, but also We have a great team within the UAE Cabinet and Office of Competitiveness, where they work on a daily basis on producing the latest regulations, the latest policies to release these data. They have aggregated one of the biggest and valuable initiatives in the region for the data to be provided as an open service to any type of industry or any kind of individual use, given that they would issue a request for it. Today, as we are sitting here and speaking in Expo 2020, the Competitiveness Office as well launches a regional hub and a regional lab on addressing the SDGs and providing data that could be addressed to the SDG projects across board. And we're proud to see here from UAE the ability to track the impact on a global level of all of these SDG 17 goals on 196 indicators on a platform that is going to measure accurately the impact that the world is making through the data that we are collecting. Yes, and I think the government, as we have said again and again and again, they could be a driving force, but it's not a one show, a one entity kind of show of power. We need this kind of collaborative network. We need the industry to work with the private sector, to work with the government, to work with the public in order to build a holistic solution that fits everybody across board. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Hoda, for your input. Ms. Nani, also I would like to hear your input, but please try to take it like in 2 minutes.
Yeah,
because
sure.
the time is going.
No, that's okay, sure. I will just make it brief. From my point of view, that it's a culture change. So I think we just need to we can. From my opinion, we cannot force people to share their data. But once the people, they will feel that their data is used in a more, let's say, informative way, and it will help them in solving their issues. For example, we are hearing about job seeker nowadays. So such kind of information, once it is shared through the public, and they will feel that it is going to solve their issues or their problem, I think it will change the culture immediately, and they will start sharing their information, because they will know that their information is not shared because of, let's say, marketing information, or for, let's say, private sector to get information in order to market their product. It will direct their thoughts into another way that it will help them in getting what they want from the, let's say, from the government.
Thank you very much for your input, Ms. Nani. And also, actually, we have a success story in UAE. They want like make kind of benchmarking with and learning from what's happening outside our region. That I see one storytelling about open data challenge in Emirates of Ajman in the UAE. I really like it because it's open for public, and it's not a government work. You just ask the people from all the world, come and design your story by using this open data. We are not talking here about technology. We are talking here about citizen, how I make the citizen use this data, make them business. I'm an investor, I want to invest. I am a business owner, I want to open my business in the city. Why? And really, I like this initiative, and I feel like this a really great success story. It's all happened by sponsor of the Crown Prince of Ajman, when he put a lot of efforts on it, and himself that time, his supervisor, all the stage. He said that I want this culture to be with all the employees of government, for public, for citizen, for the people from outside the United Arab Emirates even. Dr. Nibal, I think you have and more to tell us about that. If you can tell me in 2 minutes about your comment about generally open data, which really I see it the rich point, especially for us as normal citizen public.
Yes, in fact, yes. I mean, open data, I mean, it is very important what was said by the excellent speakers. But I want to stress on the fact that, I mean, it will be nice to have that any government has open data strategy, I mean, and have rule and regulation related to open data. And one of the important law, for example, related to open data is the access to information law. And this kind of whenever it is available, the access to information law, I would like to mention that this law is very important to have from one angle, because it is it shows which kind of data should be opened by government. And in general, if we have such law, and in general this law mention clearly that personal data are not published, then I want to mention here the issue about personal data and the dilemma between openness and personal data. In general, with open data, with access to information law, normally personal data are protected, and they are even not published normally. And it is more the statistics or the gathered data which are of generic nature that are put available for online, I mean, for public. This is one angle. And also, I mean, this is what is also important in this regard, is to have personal data protection law. And here I join speakers, the excellent speaker, about the regulation and laws that are needed to protect the personal data. And personal data law is normally protecting all the human or our information as a human being. And if we have such law, normally there isn't a lot of worry about having this openness via personal data. This is what I want really to mention, and that it's very important for our country to move ahead, to move towards these rule and regulation needed for openness. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nibal, for your input. I think we talk a lot about data, and if we continue, we'll take the discussion more deeper. But I think we mentioned the most important thing we should take in consideration about it. And when we talk about data, we should also talk about the AI, as we start talk about it in the beginning of the panel discussion. I would like to take the discussion now to Ms. Mariam and Ms. Samia again, talking about the AI, the possibility it's giving for government and for services. AI helps government to provide a new level of confidence. It can also help to protect life, as we have seen during the pandemic, and currently also after the pandemic, lots of solution or government services provided by using AI technology. So what are the ways government are leveraging the AI and digital technologies currently? If we can elaborate on that, Mariam, please.
Sure, thank you, Yasmin. I think what we've seen is quite interesting, because we've seen AI use in diverse sectors. So it's not just one case of it, we've seen a number of it. So obviously there's the use of AI within government services to make operations more efficient. So to be able to predict even things like who might have accidents in certain areas, what areas are going to be more congested. So things that are much more operational. But we've also seen AI, and this has been mentioned, in the healthcare sector. So one of the ones that I find most interesting, and we've been focusing on quite a lot, is AI use in diagnostics. So yeah, as we all know, I think the Gulf is quite diabetes heavy. It's one of the biggest genetic diseases that we have here, but it's sometimes hard to diagnose it, aside from blood tests and other forms of tests that a number of people go through. So one of the ways that we've been seeing AI being used here in the healthcare sector is for diagnostics, particularly of diabetes, and it's through retinal scans. And that's actually been able to predict whether somebody is prone to diabetes and when they would be getting that. So that's something that we've seen that I think is quite interesting. We've also seen AI use in education. So this is something that we've actually worked on personally within the center. It was around the use of AI for children with learning disabilities. So we found that AI is actually very helpful for children, particularly children with autism. And the reason for that is because a lot of the time teachers don't always know how to personalize their particular tutoring or their particular curriculum to students. And because AI is consistently learning based on patterns, it's able to actually provide more accurate curriculum and more accurate tutoring opportunities for these children. And maybe the last one that I'll go into, so so Samia can have her time as well, is around the court systems. It's quite interesting. I mean, I think from our perspective, we would think it's quite scary to have AI in the court system being able to litigate or offer court rulings. But we've actually seen in a number of countries the use of AI for court rulings. And this is because AI is able to go through evidence much faster than people are, and usually with more accurate predictions. Of course, all of this should be done with human oversight, but it's an interesting shift towards things like robot judges or robot healthcare providers, which again, we should be thinking about from a regulatory perspective, but still very, very interesting to see these uses.
Thank you, Mariam, for your input. Ms. Samia.
Thank you, Yasmin. And I want to add to what Mariam just presented. Indeed, when you look at countries like Japan, for example, Japan has been investing so much on AI for health, for robotics. And so it looks like very futuristic, but it's today that we have these types of AI tools to diagnose, and of course, exacerbated by COVID. For example, healthcare data around the vaccine and the vaccine tracking should be so much easier. And if governments were investing in using the right tools in an ethical way, the people will not have to provide constantly, for example, their vaccine certificates and re-enter the same data, etc. So to add to what Mariam was saying, we are seeing a lot of use of AI for predictive weather patterns and really mapping of how climate change will affect the world. And this is really not out of nowhere. We're seeing this in our agricultural projects. It's very important for the sustainability of crops. And we're seeing a lot of that for transport, but also for safety, human safety, of course, to ensure to minimize the harm to people by criminals. We also are seeing a lot of use of AI for cross-border data flow. And I think in the MENA region, there is a lot of a desire by government to work together to improve the flow of people, goods, and services. This is something that could really help the MENA region and make us a stronger bloc, exactly like the EU has done, and exactly like Africa is doing with the ECOWAS, with the Eastern Commission for Africa, and with the SADC. So there's a lot that can be done through AI. Last but not least, I want to talk about the people and the people that are affected by AI, and how can government use AI for good to improve online services. So every government now has something that is MyGov, where there is a user profile, and based on the age, the location, the socioeconomic environment, a lot can be done and pushed, just like the private sector does, pushing the services to the people based on their user journeys, based on their moments in life, and make it much easier for them. So really eliminating a lot of the bureaucracy that gives public administration a bad name. AI is a good chance for government to do that while respecting the privacy. And as Nibal said, transaction, which are anonymous, transaction around how many people use X or Y service, how many people have used online payment instead of sending checks. These are very, very useful. And these type of anonymized data is perfect actually for open data and can unleash a lot of the innovation. Last but not least, mapping and geographical information system, where both AI and open data can be of tremendous use to expose the geography, the terrain, again, weather patterns, but also tourism, spots to go for gas, for schools, for healthcare clinic, would also tremendously add value to the logistic and supply chain And a lot of entrepreneurs in all the countries we are talking about in MENA would be having wonderful ideas and developing a good business model for a small firm to grow and provide local services in local language for our people. So this is some examples, and I hand it back over to you, Yasmin. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samia. Thank you, Mariam, also for your input. And I think it's really great input what we have from your side. We have with us currently some questions from the audience. I would like to open a slot for them to answer them questions. Still, we have 10 minutes to end this session. Actually, we have a question from one of the audience. It's asking about the Bahrain, Ms. Nani. Is there an implementation currently in Bahrain for AI? And if so, why it's not introduced in the most sector?
Well, in Bahrain, I think recently, before 2 years, I think there was an announcement of integrating AI into the government, let's say, strategy. The plan is ongoing. Still, we didn't see something which is real life from any of the government entity, as per my knowledge. But there are many activities aside from the e-services or any technology that has been provided or services provided to the public. We are having many activities and a lot of the universities. For example, Polytechnic, they are doing a yearly competition between their students, and they're the proprietorship of His Highness Sheikh Khalid bin Hamad Al Khalifa. And there are many interesting, let's say, application and product that is on yearly basis that we can see our students and youth people, they are coming up with.
Can we have some numbers about one or two sectors that use the AI in Bahrain?
Still, as per my knowledge, I don't think so. There is something has been implemented right now using the AI technology, but I'm sure it's because the strategy, as I said, it is an ongoing one. So I think it's in the plan of integrating or updating the government strategies and the government entity strategies with the AI technology.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nani. There is also another question. I think Dr. Hoda, she wrote the answer for it, but also I would like to take it and take also input from other audience about it. It's about how the technology will address the influential. Dr. Hoda, you can start, and then I will take it for another panelist to hear from them also, them input.
So the question was, how can technology address inflations? And I think this is a very critical question that we all sit on currently with the current very stressed climate post-COVID. And I think one of the beautiful synergies that technology could build for you is the ability to exist in a working environment or join a working force, regardless of your physical ability, regardless of your geographic location. And capitalizing in this will allow you to remotely join a workforce, for example, in a different geographical location, which could be empowering, which could mean that you could improve your employability using technology. And not just by the fact that you could use remote working example, but the fact that you also could diversify your investment. In the past, if you need to invest in any of the stock markets, you have to have a hefty amount of capital to get into that kind of an investment. But today, you could start mining, use a mining application to just, generate an income. NFTs, for example, today is a huge market for young generation and kids and teens and even, I would say, children to generate an income from, the comfort of their homes. I think technology is widening up the spectrum of income. However, it's always when we are dealing with technology, the investments are high risk, high returns, which means you have to get into it as soon as possible, invest as much as you can, and get out of it as soon as possible. I think it's also today it lies on the shoulders of the developers to provide a level of stability within these investments. So you could make sure that if you invested in NFTs or Bitcoins or cryptocurrencies, then there is a little bit of lower risk and more stability than what it is at the moment. So I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it to my fellow panelists to contribute to the rest.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hoda. Ms. Samia, also, I would like to hear your input from your side about the question. The question, it was about how the technology will address the influential.
Sorry, Yasmin, I didn't hear you. Can you just repeat the question? I think you were asking about AI implementation and the role of government. Is that the question?
You're muted, Yasmin.
No, it's not that the question. There is one question from one of audience. It's about how the technology will address the influential.
How technology will address the information. Sorry, I'm having a terrible connection. That's why.
The inflation, Dr. Ms. Samia, the inflation.
The inflation.
Yes, the economic inflation. How technology can address economic inflations.
Yes, that's going to be a tough one. That's going to be a really tough one at this point. I'm not sure I have an answer. I'm not the right person to answer that. Sorry.
Yasmin, I think you are muted.
Okay. I would like to come to the last of the session and ask my last question. Since we are in the female, let us say, technology event, how we can make women builders for digital economy. We'd like to start to hear from all of you. Dr. Nibal, we can start with you. We have 2 minutes for each of you. Thank you.
Okay, I think the first thing that a woman can do, is to build her capability in technology, in digital technology and different technology. Of course, we are not supposed all to be expert in technology, but at least to have the capability needed for to understand the minimum. I would say starting by that, and then look at how her career or her work in her activity, if she is medicine or if she is maybe in media or if she is in government, how the technology can help such career. Can help her in her career to advance her career in the best way. Then I would say first building her capability, second looking at the technology, how it can help her in her career, and then if possible to go towards this end and to develop her career using the technology in a way or another. I will stop here to give the opportunity to other colleagues.
Ms. Samia, also would like to hear from you.
Thank you. I completely agree with Nibal in terms of capabilities, adopting more of a technology career. I also would call for better networking amongst women. This panel is fantastic. You all are role models in your own countries and in the region. So how can we expand the role modeling for expert women who are leading the technical field in the MENA region, of all ages, of all background? The role model, I think, is what has been lacking a lot. And of course, positively communicating around technology fields for women in the media, in the education, in the higher education, so that early on young women are attracted to these careers and are not scared by them. Over back to you, Yasmin.
Thank you very much, Ms. Samia. Mariam, same question, like how we can make a women builder for the digital economy.
Sure. I think both points are very valid. It's about capabilities, but I think the one thing that I always focus on is having other people in the field, because I think it's a field that is still quite male dominated, or at least that's what you see from a seniority level. And so it's, I think it's quite intimidating to want to be in this field. You know, you might have studied this academically, you might have succeeded, you might even have the clear capabilities, but if you don't see other women in the field, it's very hard, I think, to be able to go into these rooms that are filled with men. So I would say panels like this is very, very helpful, but also being able to just identify who else is in the field, trying to grow those networks, have those mentoring opportunities will lead to more people, because it's less about the capabilities, and I think more about us being more inclusive as a society and as a workforce.
Thank you very much, Mariam, for your input. And I really love what we have discussed today when we talk about all things related to digital transformation in government, how we can support the nation to be part and elements for that, how government should offer the tool and the right tool and open the channel for the public to be part of it, how we should care about the data, and how we should care about the policies, build the right systems, make sure from managing the human capital in that process, how also we should be sure from the diversity for all the system which is currently building by government or even in the business, and especially when we talk about our region, MENA region, and also in the GCC area, government trying to adopt the AI, government trying to enhance them services, and also the expectation and to meet the expectation for the users and the nation. And I would like to conclude this panel discussion about this digital transformation, that citizen participation in government business, it's become very important. Agencies are required to engage public to enhance the decision through the widely disseminated knowledge and increase public participation in government business. It's let us say a new opportunity for government, especially when we see what happened during the pandemic and after. Information transparency in government agencies are required to utilize technology to put information and more information open for public. And also about the agency decision itself and the operation, online operation and forms which are open for public. And we need more and more collaboration across all the government entities and also between the countries and government in countries in MENA region. We have good success story in the UAE, and we are doing a lot of benchmarking with Egypt, GCC area, with Sudan, with Iraq, about a digital transformation government. One of example, the accelerating program of the UAE government. We are proud of that. Agencies in government are required to use innovation tool, methods, and systems to cooperate across all the level of government and engage more and more with public to the work of government. I think the new era of the government, and correct me if I'm wrong, this will take us from for the new form or the new type of government, which is shared government, let us say like a cloud government or shared data center of government. I would like to appreciate your contribution for this panel discussion and your time today offer for us to share your knowledge and your information with audience. And I think we have come up for the good points when we mention a lot about technology, policy, and government. Thank you very much for your time and being with us today. Thank you, Dr. Nibal from Beirut. Thank you, Ms. Nani Butti from Bahrain. And thank you, Mariam and Muhairi from Dubai. And thank you, Ms. Samia Melhem from US. And looking forward to see you, inshallah, in second edition of the event. Thank you very much and have a great day. Thank you for the whole audience and for the whole people who listen to us during this panel. Thank you very much, and assalamu alaikum. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Yasmin.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.